Werewolf.
What is going on, everyone? We are back with another In Search of Darkness horror movie review. I'm Depraved.
I'm Hellcat.
And we are
Hella Depraved.
And I have one question.
What?
Do you like the trophy? Because the 80s did.
I know they did.
They loved them some lycanthropy.
I mean, I enjoy werewolves quite a bit.
I hate
More
them.
than you. Yeah.
Okay, if there's one thing, guys, I generally hate in horror, it is the very basic premise of a monster. And here's what I mean by that. I am not a big fan of vampires, zombies, werewolves, mummies. If there's a universal monster, I don't like them.
His biggest problem is he feels like there's an archetypal version.
There's a way they're supposed to be, and it's never done that way.
Right. That's the problem right there.
Zombies, oh yeah, let's make them run. Fuck you.
Right. You might want to pull up...
Oh yeah, I didn't do that.
Yeah. So, anyway, this is an American werewolf in London. And it has its pros and cons. I know that this is iconic. I know that so many people love this film. Honestly, it kind of bores me to death. It was better the fourth time through. Fifth time through. I've seen it several times. Because... I don't know. I don't know why it was better.
She's a glutton for punishment.
Right.
Because doing reviews, you kind of probably feel more...
I was paying more
expected
attention.
to pay attention.
Yeah, I mean, I was paying more attention to the filming and, like, all of the little nuances in their banter. And I do like their best friend relationship. So, the plot of this is there's two American backpackers, male, that are going through northern England and come across this small village pub where everything is weird and they are not wanted, and basically leave in the dark, walk across the moor, which they were told not to, under the light of a full moon, get attacked. One of them dies, one of them is mauled, and he ends up in the hospital and starts having hallucinogenic dreams. Apparently, the nurse falls for him in the month that he's there and allows him to come stay at her flat after he's released, which would never happen because she's just like, by the way, I think you're sexy. And then they have sex.
I don't usually do this with people, but you're an American,
Right,
and
right.
I find you attractive.
Right. Pretty much. And then his deceased friend starts popping up in his visions. He thinks he's just going crazy. But his deceased friend it's actually probably the funniest part of the entire film, is telling him he needs to unalive himself because he's going to transform into a werewolf
And
at
kill
the full
a bunch
moon.
of people.
Kill people, and this is just the best way to go about this. And until he does unalive himself, his best friend is caught as a ghoul, basically stalking the earth, never allowed to rest, and so on and so forth. So obviously he thinks he's kind of crazy. He doesn't believe him until the full moon, and then he transforms, goes off and kills a bunch of people because that's what one does. And then basically the next day walks through with guilt because he doesn't remember what he does, learns of all the killings. So does his nurse fuck buddy. So does the doctor.
Tries to turn himself in.
Right. They're trying to help him. He tries to turn himself in. Anyway, he ends up shot and dead.
At the very end.
Yeah. Yeah. But he does rack up kind of an impressive kill count. Right. I think it was like 12 or 13 by the time we were done. Plus the wreckage that ensues from a whole bunch of car crashes after they see him.
There might have been more deaths in the car
pile. Those were gory
up.
and fantastic, too. Very creative, yeah.
All right. So, since we didn't do it for the beginning, we're going to include all this in the cast.
Right.
So before we get into the cast. Movie is directed by John Landis, written by John Landis, produced by George Folsey Jr.
Right.
Distributed by Universal Pictures. Released August 21st, 1981. Had a 97-minute runtime. Was released in the UK and the US. Had a budget of 5.8 million. Had a box office of 62 million.
Yeah.
A big difference.
Did quite well. Yes.
Has an 89% critic review off of 63 reviews over on Rotten Tomatoes.
I honestly don't know that I've ever seen that high either.
85% audience score with 100,000 plus ratings.
Right.
As far as the cast goes, David Naughton as David Kessler. Must have been easy for him.
I know, huh?
Jenny Agutter as Nurse Alex Price.
Mm-hmm.
Griffin Dunne? Probably Dunne.
It's done.
Griffin Dunne as Jack Goodman. And then John Woodvine as Dr. J.S. Hirsch.
Right.
Don McKillop as Inspector Villers. Frank Oz as Mr. Collins. And the rest all names.
I mean, like, I thought it was well acted.
Cast was fantastic.
They picked the right people to be...
There were... Okay. Again, for an 80s movie, it was well acted.
Right.
I gotta say, this definitely had some overacting moments.
It did.
And some underacting moments.
But, you know.
Because I'm not gonna lie, there are times I legit thought David's character was dumb.
I think in some ways he is, babe. He's an American tourist. I think that it's feeding to the stereotype of a little bit of duncity. I really liked how they played Jack Goodman's. I mean, that's his friend, the ghoul friend, because he's kind of a mix of smart, but also funny, but also, you know, trying to get his friend to unalive himself most of the movie.
Right. I definitely, this movie was definitely, in my opinion, purposefully written in a way to be funny.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, like, come on, half their conversation takes place in a porno movie theater.
And old girl was straight up like, "Look, I'm not usually a hoe."
I know. She's like, I've only
but
had
for
7
you,
partners. She goes
tonight,
through the list. I've
I
only
will
had
be.
7 partners. I blah blah blah. Like, and you're just sitting there like, wow, that's a info dump. That's great. Do you want to watch the telly while I shower? I'm gonna slip into something a little more comfortable.
Right.
Yeah. No. But you know, you're taking a guy home who is having hallucinogenic dreams, who has admittedly said he thinks he's crazy, who I just don't know, girl. I don't. Your choices.
This is one of those movies.
I see red flags.
The more I watch it, the more I enjoy it. Cause
I think it's so absurd.
Every
that it
time I watch
more
it,
and more funny.
I catch something new
Mm-hmm.
that interests and entertains me.
I mean, the best scene, I think, is in the adult movie theater. Because not only is his friend meeting him there to discuss that he's a werewolf and he killed these people last night, but he introduces him to the ghouls of the people he killed the night before. And then they sit there while a porno is playing, which they make receptive to the questions. So, like, the questions that are asked in the real life situation are then, like, answered in the porno incidentally. Like, when the phone rings and she's like, hello? Like, there's actually that going on in real life. Like, they played that very well. But then all the ghouls sit there and discuss all the different ways that David's character could unalive himself.
Right.
And I think that's hysterical. And then as soon as they leave there, that is when all of the mayhem with all the cars and just everything that makes my day in terms of kill count and everything starts happening. And I wish more of the crowd died.
And this movie legit felt ended.
Yeah.
Like, at the very end, the girl walks up to the werewolf and she's like, I love you, because he admitted that he loved her.
Right. But he also said he didn't think that werewolves could be killed by anything other than somebody who truly loved them.
Right.
And in saying I love you, she got him to pause long enough that the cops all shot him, because that's what cops do. And he returned to his original form, deceased. Right. And all the ghouls were released. It's just...
it has a good beginning, middle, and end. Now, I guess we're going to go into special effects. This is where I can actually praise the movie on its
in comparison to The Howling. This is where my comparison comes in, guys. This one did his transformation in a way I respect. And it's not... It
still took a while.
And it's not because
But he was on his own.
Yeah, it's not because of the bladder control, like the...
Bladder effects
or anything like that. It's
the elongation of the nose and the hands.
Yeah, but they showed all parts of him. So, like, his spine popping, his claws transforming, his face and snout, but also, like, his skin burning. And there was no one standing there just watching him who should have been running away.
Right.
It was him alone in a room.
And I loved the way it came about, where he was already questioning whether or not werewolves were real and whether or not he was actually going to turn.
And if him seeing his ghoul friend was just him being crazy or not, yeah.
Right. So he keeps going to the fridge looking for food, can't find anything.
But I'm not hungry.
He's like, I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry. And he's which is me normally.
It's obvious that he has a lot of restless energy. It's the day of the full moon.
Right.
All of a sudden, I'm burning hot!
And it comes out of fucking nowhere.
You think, yeah.
He's like, it's fucking hot. And he like rips off his shirt.
And his skin's smoking.
And
yeah, he's legit burning up.
Right. And that's when they do the transformation. And the transformation was actually done very well. I actually think the transformation was done better in this than on The Howling. Above all. That's
what I'm saying. Like, it's not just the bladder practical effects that happened in The Howling. They studied so many more parts of the body that they were transforming. It didn't get old. You're not sitting there like, okay, like we've seen his one cheek bubble 50 times at this point. Like, where
I'm also
are we going?
confused at this point on what the fuck a werewolf is.
Why?
Here's why because in this movie, it's very much just a very large wolf. He wasn't on his, wasn't... Okay. He very much ran around like a wolf.
Oh, like a wolf. But like a very large wolf.
But just very huge.
But he was also a man at other points of the month.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was more of a animalistic as opposed to being a...
hybrid.
A hybrid of man and wolf.
Right.
That I'm used to seeing and everything else.
Yeah, but again, the lore is gonna depend.
It's gonna depend on the type of lycanthropy.
This one is very much transforms at the full moon, becomes its animal, and goes on a mindless killing rage.
Right.
Right? Whereas, and I'm not just going to point to The Howling, but a lot of lore is more the hybrid, where the shift is voluntary and the acts are remembered as sort of a more bestial memory, but still it's completely remembered. And then some of them, full moon transformation is the only time that it's involuntary transformation, and the rest of the time is voluntary. Silver bullets. I don't know what this killing was. Maybe just overabundance of bullets. Maybe it's killing him out of love. But then again, you see that they killed the guy on the moors with rifles too, and nobody discusses silver bullets. Nobody discusses that somebody in the crowd loved the guy on the moors, you know.
Speaking of which, can we talk about the bar that they end up at in the beginning? And how much there's one guy specifically... There's one guy specifically in this bar that I fucking hate.
Okay. Alright.
I don't remember which character it was.
Especially if they don't give us a headshot.
Right. Yeah. But it's the guy that, like, after they send the kids out for asking too many damn questions, they send them back out of the bar. They're like, you gotta fucking bounce. One guy is straight up like, we've pretty much just murdered him. And the other guy is like, yeah, but they're none of our business and this and that, and then it goes back to the dude that just told him that they had just murdered him, and he says something along the lines of
would have happened anyway.
They would have never believed us anyway, and it's like, dude, pick a side.
Right. So wishy-washy. How dare you?
Either not care or care, but run with it.
Right.
Be decisive.
Right. I do like how they subvert your expectations, though, because the one guy that is playing darts at the very beginning with the two
He's the one I'm talking about.
Americans, who is so rude to them. No, he's not the one who says... He's the one that says they would have died anyway. But he ends up being the snitch later on in the movie. And you're like, dude, I thought he was the bully. Because he's like, just let him rot. And it turns out that the guy that you're complaining about at the very end is the one that follows the doctor out to where the snitch is telling on him and is like, you shouldn't have done that. Right. And it's like, really? Because all y'all are covering up for something. What I didn't understand, this is my biggest problem with this movie, right? So there's this whole pub of people from this village that know that there's a werewolf and what's going on. And all it takes is them going out there with rifles and shooting it. And
to get it to run away or die or whatever?
No, they killed it.
Right.
And then they said that he was an escaped lunatic that had savaged the two boys. But my problem is, if that's all it fucking takes to rid yourself of the werewolf that everyone's scared of, that all of you are like, don't walk on the moors at night, especially under a full moon, and like, why didn't you do it already? Yeah. Let's wipe out this issue.
Right.
Because obviously, like, the first time I watched this movie, I seriously thought the entire pub was werewolves. Like, I thought that's why they were so ornery and against outsiders and, like, wouldn't have told on the crazed were that was attacking people or... And then it turns out that they're not werewolves and they just know this... I was like, yeah, no. Mm-mm.
And then they have this wild... just this wild moment of dreams.
Yeah, the hallucination
that he has of
his fucking LSD dreams, man.
Nazi skeletons.
They're like Nazi orcs.
Or orcs. Yeah, Nazi orcs. Or whatever. Going around shooting him and everybody in the house with him like in his hotel room.
Like a Leave It to Beaver like family reunion where they're all sitting around and it's dinner time and then all of a sudden these Nazi orcs storm through and kill his whole family and like weird ass.
And then he like wakes up in the hospital and then when the nurse comes in to draw the blinds, another Nazi orc comes out and fucking falls on her and starts attacking. And it's like he's having Inception,
a dream within a
Inception
dream within
like
a dream.
dreams and shit. And it was wild. The movie is entertaining for it.
But I do enjoy that they put that in there as like his transformation and infection process of this lycanthropy is invading his very dreams and is showing how violent he is. And there's portions of it where he is stalking people or animals through the forest and craving raw flesh. And I mean, it is well done. I think the first time I saw it, I was a bit too young in terms of attention span.
Right.
And it was a little boring for me. It is growing on me. I don't think it'll ever grow on me to the point that I voluntarily sit down and spend an hour and a half watching this. Yeah.
Right. All right. So for judgment, I shall judge this one, I suppose. I am giving this 3 full moons. I feel like, so here's my thing. I'm giving it the same rating as The Howling.
Right.
I think they're both equally good for completely different reasons.
Yeah. I mean, this one does have a good story, though, too. It does. Not gonna lie. And I love to see American tourists get fucked up.
I feel like this one has a good story, but this one's story isn't so far out there. Or no, the Howling story isn't so far out there like this one is. Like,
right.
Just in terms of, like, the whole nurse becoming a lover after being in the hospital.
That's the most improbable thing to me.
It's so fucking stupid and crazy.
I love how the doctor's like, have you seen so-and-so since he's been discharged? And
yeah,
she's
he's
like,
in my place.
Right.
Yeah, it's just...
And she gets taken to the office and thinks she's going to be fired because it's obviously fraternizing with the crazed patient. It's a no-no.
It's a client-patient
Well, it's just a fucking no-no is what it is. She's not his doctor, but,
Right.
It's just...
shit's crazy. It's fun. It's fun.
But it's improbable. Crazy. Yeah. I like how we're talking about that being the improbable part of a werewolf movie, but, it's okay.
Right. But yeah, so 3 out of 5 full moons.
Okay, so while I would normally rate this a lower, just based on my enjoyment of the movie, I need to actually be a little unbiased here. And like I said, every time I watch this, it is growing on me more. And I think part of it is that it has a very drier British sense of humor that they try to intersperse with American humor that falls flat. And intentionally, they make the American humor horrible because they're American tourists in England and it's supposed to not be funny to the Brits. Which I, by the way, think is funny. But I just, So again, I'm going to give this 3. And it's going to be werewolf heads, which is the coat of arms for the pub. The slaughtered lamb. Because I do think it's actually very well done. It's very well done.
It is.
It's, we'll see. Maybe in 20 years it'll be one of my favorites. I highly doubt it, but, like I said, it is growing on me. So...
As bad movies continue to come out today, the 80s movies are starting to...
get better and better and better.
They're getting better and
I think
better.
I'm just gaining more of an appreciation for subtleties and also, like, how important certain movies were when they came out and, the filming and the acting. And it I think also, in some ways, I was spoiled for this movie. And I don't mean in terms of, like... plot spoilers, but my friends showed me An American Werewolf in Paris before this movie, and that one is new filming.
Isn't that a 90s
CGI? Yeah, it's meant to be campy and funny and not take itself seriously, and
97.
Has some great actors that I've always liked in it, and it is just not the same. Like, yes, it takes its concept of what's going on with the werewolves and the American tourist and everything and falling in love overnight with a nurse seriously, but on the other hand, they are completely separate movies, and I think I went into this one the first time expecting
that.
Yeah.
All right.
That
was a lot of fun, guys. I don't know what the next movie is because I haven't looked that far ahead.
Right. We'll be just as surprised as you are.
Probably something as lycanthropy.
I enjoy a good werewolf movie. Maybe it'll have vampires.
We're getting Van Helsing?
Van Helsing is not an 80s movie, love.
No, but it's got werewolves and vampires.
Yeah.
One of each, specifically.
We could watch Underworld, too.
Yeah.
Same.
It's alright.
Party pooper.
Alright, we love you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Ta-ta.